I want Baldy's top 5 all-time receivers. Like your receivers that when you look at skill, catching the ball, route running, unstoppable, like just the greatest receivers. And, I look at today and over the last 10 years, and especially today, we've just seen an advent of just incredible receiver play, right? Like nowadays, there's 10, 12 guys drafted every year that are pronounced, that are really good. So I'm curious to see who your top 5, and, is Jerry Rice, because he's always, the GOAT when it comes to receivers, but is that fair? Is that a slight to today's receiver?
No, it's not a slight. He was the perfect guy in the West Coast system. He got the right amount of targets, the right amount of plays, a proven Hall of Fame coach coaching a system that spread like wildfire around the league. Now, Jerry Rice is still there. Randy Moss is there. Sterling Sharp, for my money, he played 6 years. I never seen a receiver built like Sterling Sharp, as strong as Sterling Sharp, as dominant as Sterling Sharp, period. Now, you could say he didn't have the longevity. He broke his neck. Had his neck fused, could have come back and played, said, I'm not risking it. Sterling Sharp is a top 5 wide receiver of all time.
Wow.
Look, I'll put Drew Pearson in that category. Drew Pearson won Super Bowls with Dallas Cowboys, toughest guy in a huddle that I've ever played with, fearless across the middle, never got hurt, played every game. Drew Pearson was a phenomenal football player. As tough as they come. Loved to practice, loved the game. I'm partial because I played with him for 6 years, and I became a really good friend of his. But I'll put him in there. And I guess you got to take a guy from today's modern era. Like, it would be hard to go against Tyreek Hill right now. Just like I just did this breakdown on him this weekend, cuz I watched every catch of his this past year. He had 119 catches on 170 targets for almost 1,800 yards. And he was, limping basically the last 4 games of the season. Like, he could have, if he's not limping, he gets 2,000 yards. Nobody could cover him. He's, it's 34 below in Kansas City in a playoff game. It's Arctic frigid conditions, and he's going 50 yards for a touchdown. And, guys are tripping over themselves trying to get him out of the end zone. I mean, Tyreek Hill is, I think he's like, I love Jamar. I love Justin. I love AJ. I love Brandon Ayuk. I love a lot of guys in this league, but I don't think anybody is in the category of Tyreek Hill right now.
Well, and I was going to ask you about that because he just dominates a game. Like, what was interesting is Deshaun Jackson was an incredible weapon, right? Like the speed that he had, he'd run through a cover 2. He forced defensive coordinators to roll coverage. Like, he just made space on the field, right? Mm-hmm. And Tyreek Hill is better, right? And even more dominant than Deshaun was. And that kind of thing we've never really seen, right? I mean, is he the greatest long ball speed threat in the history of the sport?
Randy Moss was the most talented receiver of all time.
He was also bigger, right? And
just reach, leaping ability, all that. Randy goes to New England after sitting on the bench basically with the Raiders for 2 years, catches 23 touchdown passes. Talent-wise, he came in 1998. I mean, there's John Madden on Thanksgiving gushing over Randy Moss. Like, nobody will ever forget his debut, what he did as soon as he came. He dominated this league the way we see Tyreek do it now, but he did it day one in Minnesota. So, Randy's the most talented I've ever seen. Jerry Rice had longevity and did it year in, year out. But what Tyreek is doing right now is, he's just going to – now, I know it's a 17-game schedule, so it's a little bit longer. He's getting more catches, but we might not see another guy like Tyreek.
And the other aspect is, and this is the argument I'll make, that maybe Chase and or Jefferson belong on the list, in that if today is the era of passing, right, then the receiver has to have more of an impact on an all-time list just because everybody's trying to defend you, right? Like everybody's, there's so much back, a lot of those guys played in the era of the running back, right? Which made the receiver's job a lot easier, although they had to be great blockers. But you look at today, it takes a lot for a receiver to stand out. And you look at Jefferson, and he's every bit of Jerry Rice. Like, you know what? He'll take it to the house. He'll beat you on an inside slant. I mean, he'll do the same thing.
We all silly like the mayor.